You are listening to the All Metal Mode podcast with your host, Mike Hare. Join me and Gypsy Jules every Monday night and Matt Hoffman and myself every Tuesday night. Listen in as we discuss a wide range of metal detecting and related topics such as technical, equipment, talk to guests, and so much more. Sit back, join in on the drinking game. For those new to the show, every time I say relic machine, you need to do a shot. These are the rules, I didn't make them up. We hope you enjoy this episode of All Metal Mode. Hey everybody, this is Mike and you're listening to the All Metal Mode podcast. Tonight's special guest is Kelly Noeller. I hope I said that right. We'll get him on shortly and we'll have him correct us if I'm wrong. Before we get into it, Tesoro closed their doors from my understanding. I have not yet talked to Tesoro. I've called several times with no answer. Supposedly some people have gotten through and got it confirmed. Wow, what a sad time. I mean, at least for me, I know they're, on one hand, I get it, and I know everybody wants a VDI and depth gauge and everything else, but I still, one of the best relic detectors I've ever had. Sad day for me, still an American company, just a shame. There's been some rumors that somebody's going to buy them out or talking about buying it. I have my doubts, but we'll see. I don't know if you guys heard that, but yeah, Tesoro has closed their doors. They let everybody go last week. I want to say Thursday. They laid everybody off, and so I don't know, but I'll keep you guys informed as I know and find out. Tomorrow night we've got George and Pam Leshy. We're going to discuss some of their new designs and uses of their different tools, and it's a show I've been wanting to do for a while. It's been, they're really busy people and stuff, and but some of their tools I question, like, well, what would you use that for? And I'll have a conversation with George or Pam and it'll come up and I'll be like, well, what's this for? And they'll tell me and it's like, oh, never thought of that. I mean, everything they make has a purpose, a reason. And so I'm really, really excited to talk to them about that. And but they definitely have some new designs. As you know, I have one of their shovels that nobody has. They pretty much, from my understanding, made it for me. I'd requested, I was talking to him and I'd said, what would you recommend for field hunting where I can move a lot of dirt? And we kind of talked about it. And George said, I don't know if I really have anything for like loose dirt that'll really move some dirt. And, well, I don't know, about a month ago, he sent me one and he said, well, try this out. So I went out on the website to see what it was and I couldn't find it. And so I contacted George and I said, well, where is this one? Can I talk about it? Is it so new? And he said, you have one of two prototypes made up. He said, if you look at it under the eagle, you'll have a number 1 or number 2. And mine happens to be number 1. And there's not a name for it. Well, if you guys remember, I announced a contest to name it. I've tried to get a hold of George and him a few times. I don't know what happened to the contest. I'm sure we'll get it up and going, and we'll talk to them tomorrow night about it and work on that. But as of now, the contest never came about. I'm sure they will. They are very busy people. Probably forgot. But anyhow, tomorrow night is George and Pam Leshy, and we're going to be talking Predator tools. So that ought to be a fun show. I always enjoy having them on. They're just fantastic people. Gypsy, how you doing?
Doing great.
Good.
Great to be here tonight.
Good.
Yeah, it's been raining and pouring here, so got to go metal detecting yesterday for a short while out at the river, and then had to leave early because it started thunderstorming. But
yeah, right.
I guess we've needed the rain for a while, though. So.
I didn't tell. I was going to tell the story. I'll go ahead and tell it right now. So I got up early with the kids this morning, and Steph didn't have to work real late today. She came home and she picked up Monkey, and they went to the store. Well, Randy had fallen asleep, and I thought, ooh, I'm going to sneak in a little nap here. And I woke up to Steph asking me to carry groceries in and stuff, which she knows I'd be upset if she did it without me. I don't know. It's just my thing. You know, you help carry groceries or whatever. So I wake up from this hard nap, throw on a pair of sandals, and I'm out the door, and it is pouring rain. I'm carrying a bunch of groceries in, and I'm moving fast, and I don't know if I tripped on the concrete pad. I don't know what happened, but I went headfirst into metal rails, and my head, my neck, I've got road rash all over me. I've got the more I look, the more I find, and I'm just stoved up. So, yeah, I don't like the rain right now. I'm still mad at it. So,
Oh, goodness.
Yeah. So,
hope you don't have a concussion, so don't fall asleep during the during the podcast.
And then I'm gonna tell people real quick. I am going to try my best to hang back, let Gypsy do this, and I talk over her so much and talk so much that tonight's her show, and I'm really gonna try to stay out of it. I am gonna jump in because you guys know me. I can't help it, but all you, Gypsy.
Okay, well, I'm sure we'll find plenty for you to pull in and talk about.
You know it.
But if everyone just welcome our guest tonight, Kelly Noeller. Welcome, Kelly.
Hi, thank you for having me. Looking forward to the conversation.
Awesome. You're so welcome. It's so good to have you here. So I just recently met Kelly, actually through MDAO, and I'm going to let Kelly explain that to y'all first, and then we'll move into a little more about Kelly and how long he's been metal detecting and all that good stuff. So, Kelly, can you tell us a little more about MDAOA?
OA? Yeah. I started that probably, it's been, I want to say, over 5 years ago. Metal Detectors of America. I didn't want to have a group that just involved a certain club or a certain, specific area. I wanted to open it up to the United States. Well, at that time, unbeknownst to me, I had a lot of folks from other countries that wanted to join in or join MDOA. So since then, our numbers have just escalated. I think we're pushing about 4,000 now, and which is awesome. I mean, I've got some guys on there that's posted a few caves that they found that they go in and hunt, and you see them digging in there. They got some really cool pictures, and that's pretty cool with me. I mean,
wow! Did you say caves?
Yeah, caves.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
that's something that I would totally love to do someday. Is maybe metal detect in in a cave. Although they kind of creep me out because you never know, the little bats and all that stuff flying around, or wild animals and snakes. Here in Texas, it's snakes. I don't know about where you live, but some of the caves around here and stuff. But you think about, caves, people that were exploring the areas, before us a long time ago, definitely probably went into those caves and sheltered in those caves and stored things in caves, and so that sounds so interesting to me.
Oh yeah, and of course in this area, I'm probably about 45 minutes from Jesse James' farm in
Oh wow!
Kearney. So yeah, everyone knows that he would have hid out somewhere, and it certainly wasn't in an open field.
Right?
Yeah, but I'm still looking. When I find, everyone will know, I promise. But yeah, no, it's just something that I have quite a passion for, and anyone that remotely knows me knows that I do what I can to promote and kind of provide avenues for folks that, well, just for a prime example with MDOA, just the other day a fellow sent me a message, and he was trying to find someone that was in the state of Washington because he was tired of metal detecting by himself. Well, I just made a post, and there just happened to be another fellow that was also in that state that he wanted, someone to go metal detect with, and so hopefully those two will be able to get together and see what they come up with.
Definitely, and that's what this hobby's about, is, connecting with others that do the same thing, that enjoy and have a passion for metal detecting and history and all of that, and bringing, like-minded people together. It doesn't matter what machine they're swinging, just being able to connect with others that enjoy metal detecting as much as we do, and that's what I appreciate about MDOA. But moving from that, let me ask you, Kelly, for those of you that don't know Kelly yet, go ahead and tell us how you got into metal detecting and how long you've been metal detecting, if you don't mind.
Oh, sure. It actually started for me. I was, around 10 years old or so, and my grandparents and great-grandparents, they really got me into the respect for history and learning about it and how to research it. My grandfather, he had a compass metal detector, and then he got a groundhog. I was definitely the digger dude. But those were just a lot of good memories, and we found stuff, and that's where I kind of learned about it. And there for a while, once I got into high school and college, and kind of got put by the wayside. I just had other things that I had to do, and if you've been to college, you spend a lot of time studying and very little time sleeping.
Right. Yeah, there's those times in your life you have to lay the detector down a little, and then life gets in the way. But but once you're hooked, It's tough to lay it down for long. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And it once I kind of I don't know, I hit kind of a one of those crossroads in life, and did some soul searching, went through some changes. I realized that, hey, I'm a treasure hunter. It's what I do. It's a passion, and plus hunting, fishing, just being outdoors, and that's one thing
Right.
that was instilled in me long ago, and the respect that you have for nature, and just and camping, and and stuff like that, and just enjoy the earth as it was long ago.
Oh, definitely. And that's what I love so much about metal detecting too, is just able to get outdoors. It does something to your whole perspective on life, just to get, your 2 feet on the ground out in nature. And like when you're out metal detecting in the woods, or no matter where you're metal detecting, just get you outdoors and breathing that fresh air. And it does something, out in nature, and the things we encounter, while we're out metal detecting. I bet you can tell us some stories soon. But before that, what I wanted to ask Kelly, do you mind sharing with us some of the detectors maybe you've used in the past, and some of the metal detector or metal detectors, I should say, that you currently are using as well?
Sure. Right now, I do a lot of yard hunting, which is within a community, and I'm running the XP Deus. I also run a Mind Lab Safari. My wife runs the AT Pro, kind of like what you run. But I've got, like I said, the groundhog, the compass, quantum 2. Also have the Xterra. I think
Cool.
I've got like nine different machines. And for me, it's one of those that, I'm not going to get rid of that machine. I have what I call the treasure room. I'm sure you've probably seen that video on YouTube. And it's got my wall of detectors on it, and some of my awesome
Kelly,
little finds. And yes.
Somebody asked. I've got a question, and then Nick has a question out of the chat. Do you got the X35 or HF coil?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Do you have the X35 or HF coil?
The HF.
Okay. I don't know if they might have some questions from that. Now, you've got quite a few detectors. Do you use them all, or have some kind of been retired that you haven't got rid of? And then if so, how do you use them? Like, what kind of site would you pick one over the other, kind of thing?
That's a good question. I don't know. I haven't brought these off the rack in quite a while. Like I said, the only two that I really stick with now, and that really do a great job for me, are those two machines. And when I go through with the Deus, I'll go until I start hitting some coins, and I may hit several weeks in an area. So what I do is then I go back and I'll get that Safari out, because I like to have a different perspective, or a different idea and point of view, if you will, and run the Safari through there, and it'll really pick up. It really naps silver coins, it seems. I mean, the Deus does too, but here again, when you've been through with one machine, and you just, I don't know, you want that different perspective is the only way to put it.
Right. I agree. I tell people all the time
Definitely.
that, on one hand, learn one detector and that's great. But also if you can add a second detector, different technology, there's some really great detectors out there, but they all work kind of different, I mean, so I highly recommend that to people. Nick wants to know if you're using a round or elliptical HF coil.
Round, 9-inch.
Okay. Okay. I'm guessing he's getting to a question. If I'm guessing he might have a question for you about that. So,
Okay.
yeah, but we'll wait till it comes back up. If he asks another question, I'll jump in.
Okay. But like I said, that for me, it's, I mean, I'll metal detecting. We recently had MDOA's first event. It was in Sparks, Kansas. It was a huge success. 20 some on the turnout. Everyone had a blast. Our sponsors, they donate some fantastic things. Gypsy, you donate some awesome things. And people were just, I mean, they were talking about that event, a week or so after now. They still bring it up. The most recent post that I was presented with, one of the other moderators beside yourself, Gypsy, had said that about having a dig, but only using a machine from around the 70s era, I think was the question. And, and of course, yeah. So I said, well, we got to see what the interest level is and, see how many folks, want to partake in that. Because it's a total different world. And if you're familiar with those machines at all, most of them have it'll have like a level, and it's just like a little line on it that whenever it goes over a certain metal, and it'll bounce up and it'll kind of show you, a plus or a minus, and then it's got your, I want to say like kind of a red zone, if you will, and it's not like today's machines where you have a number, you have a tone, and if you've ran your machine at all for a very length of time, you know that, like with the Deus, when you come over 91, you're going to be looking at silver usually. However, my settings on my Deus, I kind of take it to I call it unstable mode, and which is really useful whenever you're in dry soil. Because all machines, I don't care what kind it is, they do lose some depth the drier the soil is. That I've discovered. I'm sure that others have different viewpoint, but for me, it's just, that's one thing that I've noticed about these machines, and so I kind of counter it to where I can and still get down there. And of course, right now with all this rain that we've had up here, that's not going to be an issue once the sun comes out and we can get back out there.
Right. Yeah. So you were talking like maybe a hunt with using like some older machines. Is that what you mean? Like,
yeah.
Is that what someone was suggesting?
Yes, that was the question that was brought up by one of our members. That kind of a
that would be pretty neat. I guess the only problem would be is if someone didn't own one of the older machines. That would be the only thing. But like an old BFO, beat frequency oscillator, or an old one with just a meter,
yes,
something like that. But Because some of those you can pick up though, usually like at old garage sales or, you know, some,
Well, and,
you know
and
what I
some
mean?
folks also, they'll still have like one of them that they've had sitting in the rafters of their garage for
Right.
20-some years. And they might be able
Yeah,
to borrow it or something for that day.
that's
So,
true. That's true. What I liked about, I wish I could have made that hunt that was in Sparks, Kansas, but that it was at an old ghost town, a town that no longer exists, you know, except for the flea market that they have there. So I bet that was interesting because there were some old finds there and some old silver mixed in with some modern finds and stuff. But it looks like everyone had a great time and found some really, really neat stuff.
and seeing the thing about this area is that they have, like, by my understanding, 3 to 4 flea market rummage type deal sales or whatever that go on at that particular time, and they have as many as 500 booths during these events. So, there's a lot of jewelry and coins and stuff like that gets lost.
Definitely.
There's still a few. Huh?
I noticed there was a lot of rings found, and I can imagine anytime you have one of those little flea markets and stuff. I noticed Teresa, your wife, found a couple rings too while she was there.
Yeah, she did really well, and that one ring was a really nice one. It's but where would you begin to try to find the owner to it? And that's the hard part about it. That's one
definitely.
thing about that to me is a really cool factor for me is one story that I have. A guy let me and a friend of mine go metal detect. That's in a few towns over, and he had been skinning a deer that he'd shot during deer season, and he had lost his wedding band. Well, when we were detecting this area, because there was an old shack down there, and I came across that ring, probably 150 yards from where he was skinning the deer at. And so as we were leaving that day, the guy come out and he says, "Well, how'd you do?" And I said, "Well, I did pretty good. Got some bullets, got some few artifacts, but I found this ring." And I showed it to him, and he goes, "Well, you know what that is?" And I kind of looked at him like, yeah, it's a ring. You know what I mean?
I know what that is.
Yeah, I didn't pick up on it. And he said, "Well, this is my wedding ring." He said, "I lost this like 10 years ago skinning a deer." And I was like, "Really?" And he actually was going to give it, and I was like, "No, that's yours. You take that." And what he had done, because he never wanted to lose another one, was he had a tattoo of the ring around his ring finger. So that way he'd never lose one, And so his wife was she was tickled. She was very happy that I'd found that and got it back to the rightful owner.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love those stories, those return stories. And it's so hard to find the ones usually like, that when you're out in a remote area, unless you just happen to know the history of the property or who's been there, when you're out in a lake or you're detecting on the beach or stuff like that, unless it's like a class ring or something that they're really interesting and golden, or it's harder to track down those owners. But I love those stories, those return stories. There's just something about those that really are heartwarming, to have something that meant so much to someone sentimental value always, outweighs usually the monetary value of those objects. I bet you have a bunch more stories like that. Do you have anything else, like return type thing that you'd like to share? Or just any kind of metal detecting story? I love.
Yeah, I've been in yards and I got permission for it, and me and her out metal detector, and me and her and the boys, and one of their neighbors will walk over and say, "Hey, my wife lost one here a while back. She was carrying in the groceries, lost her wedding ring, and well, I asked, so where was the car parked, and all the pertinent information, and he showed me, and I went through there thinking, well, this ain't gonna take me 2 seconds, and it wasn't there. Well, I said, when's the last time you mowed your yard? Oh, it was right after that. Well, then I got spreading out a little bit more, and a little bit more, and a little bit more, and I came to the property line of the next neighbor's house, and so I went on that door and asked them. I said, I'm just trying to find her wedding ring for your neighbor here. Would that be all right if I look through here? I said, it's not going to be very deep, if any at all. I mean, it should just be right on top or real close. And hey, I found it and got it back to them, and everyone was kind of happy on that deal. And then once I did that, they told me, and the neighbor told me that, well, metal detect my yard, see what I got,
Yeah, that's a great way to get permissions right there. Those returns.
You got to get that permission. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the copper plate that you'll find, one of my very first blogs on my website, which is kellynoeller.com, I talk about this copper plate. And back in those days, they didn't have paper like we think of today. I mean, if we want to write something down, a grocery list, a note, or whatever, they didn't have that. What they had is these copper plates. They're, they weren't, very big. They would vary from 3 to 4 inches. I think as big as 5 to 6, 5 to 7 inches big, and they would document, something that happened, or that they buried a treasure, or something along those lines. Just and the Native Americans especially did this, as in their trails from one area to another, or their travels, I guess. Document how many rivers they crossed, how many hills or mountains, or whatever they went through, where they would have camped at, and and this one particular piece that a friend of mine they had found over another town over to the east of here. It was phenomenal. I mean, when I see it, and you see the bows, the arrows, and it had kind of a half horseshoe shape on it, and tints on it. It was mind blowing. It really was for me. Wow. So I traded one of my finds for it, and it's very, very brittle. It's very, very old. But since then, I've probably found 7 to 9, I think. And a lot of times, well, these are different types of copper plates. I mean, what they would do, like, a lot of times in yards you'll find pieces of harmonica reeds. You'll find coins. You'll find that mouthpiece that they would blow into. The name escapes me right now. But you can tell, because they didn't have lights like we do now. They didn't have the internet. They didn't have all this stuff back then. So after supper, they'd all go out and they'd sit and tell stories, play music, and just kind of hang out with the family till dark, and then they'd all go in and go to bed. Whenever it became dark. So one of the things that I kind of discovered is that they'd take these copper plates and they'd doodle on them. I found some that just has like the alphabet and in fancy looking letters there that someone had kind of scratched on it. Some had a bunch of squiggly lines, and
wow!
It's really cool that's kind of how they doodled back then.
That's an amazing piece of history right there, and that's something I've never found. So I may have to put that on my bucket list for something to find.
Yeah, it really is. And like I said, if you go to my website, kellynoeller.com, you can look at that picture of that.
Yeah, I'd like to see a picture of it, and some of them. I'm going to have to research that now. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
So that's one of like your favorite all-time type finds, or do you have a favorite one of? If you don't mind, tell us one of your favorite finds, or do you have a favorite find, or?
No, just a second here. I'd say
I know.
My favorite is find. Gosh, it's got to be something that has to do with fobs. I don't know. It's kind of hard. It's kind of hard for me to distinguish between fobs and buttons.
Yeah.
Fobs, they really would document a certain part of history. And I recently posted that on MDOA, talking about some of my fobs, and I don't know. It's really hard to pick a favorite because it depends on which category you're asking me.
Yeah, exactly. It does. It does.
Like that coin that I found. That's a trade dollar that me and the wife were on the cover of Western Eastern Treasure magazine. That's pretty sweet. I mean, I was like, wow, because I remember when I dug that one, it was deep, and I when it came out, I had dug and dug and dug and kept swinging my machine over, and it kept telling me, silver, silver. And I kept digging and digging. Well, whenever I made that last dig and I pulled that dirt up, I just kind of rolled out. And and I could tell, the size of it, and I go, oh, that's a Morgan. Well, I thought to myself, that's a Morgan, and I got to looking at it, and I was like, there's a whole lot more of that lady than just a head. And,
Oh, wow.
So I sent the picture. That was the day that Teresa couldn't go with me in Medley Tech. She was doing the grandma thing and watching the little ones. So she was kind of my information hotline. I sent her a couple pictures of it, and she sent them, sent the information back and saying that this coin is most likely a fake. The Chinese, they had a real fascination with our money back years back, and they would duplicate it or try to.
Oh, wow.
But there was two key points that came up, and the wings on the back of the coin, the wing had to come down where the tip of the arrow is, and had to be so far on the next arrow, and everything was adding up there, and so I was pretty stoked about that one. So yeah.
Wow.
That was,
And then,
yeah, that was cool.
so that one is in the article on Western and Eastern Treasures magazine?
Yes. Uh-huh.
That fine?
Yep.
Okay. I'll have to read that. Is that on your website as well?
I haven't posted one about that one. I know you can go, I want to say and also on my homepage of my website, it's got Western Eastern Treasure Magazine. You can click on that, and it'll take you to their site. I guess I've never really asked that question if they can go to that specific article.
Huh. That would be neat if they could.
Yeah. I didn't even think about that. So that'd be a pretty good option. I mean, if they didn't already subscribe to the magazine. So.
Right. Yeah, I think that's what kept me going for so many years in the hobby. Before the internet was really popular, or I think, way before YouTube and even some of the forums were just starting to come out. I think, was the treasure magazines. That's how I would get part of my metal detecting fix, until I could get out and hunt again, was buying. I remember, I ended up, I'd subscribe to the magazines, but I remember going to the bookstore just to go, grab a Western and Eastern, and what was the other one? That was really
Lost
big.
Treasure?
Lost Treasure. Those two magazines, I would go run to the bookstore to the magazine section every month and grab them.
I've actually, I don't know how many I've had, but it's got to be over 20 or 30 articles I've had published in Lost Treasure.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, it's been a few years.
Well,
I do my own blog now. I wanted to have the freedom to write about whatever I want and do some reviews and stuff. But yeah, it's probably been 4 or 5 years, but I had many published in there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I probably read some of your articles, Mike, and didn't even know it, over the years.
Right.
I guess before I ever even knew you, because I remember, but I still have a lot of those magazines, but you could just sit there and I'd drool over the photos and read an article several times sometime, or share an article, with someone, something that I found, in those magazines that were so cool.
There were some months that they don't like to publish 2 articles from the same person. And I never met my grandfather on my mother's side. He passed before I was born. So they would ask for an alias. So if you ever see it being in the old magazines, at least 5 years old, but my name, Mike Hare, or Don Canese, I used to, sometimes they would run two articles, and I'd write them under his name, Don Canese. So, yeah.
Don Canese, how neat.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I did one. I think there was one that they did three of mine in one magazine, and I had to come up with another one. And my dad always had a fake alias, and nobody knows where it came from. My father has passed since, but it was Joey Ogilvy, and so I used Joey Ogilvy. Nobody knows. Even my mom doesn't know where that came from, she knows it came from her dad, my Don Canese, but nobody knows where he got it from. But Joey Ogilvy was like, I don't know. I have no idea. So like there's one issue out there, I probably darn near 10 years old, that Mike Hare, Don Canese, and Joey Ogilvy's in. So those all 3 were mine.
I just love that name, Joey Ogilvy.
Yeah. When people, I use that still. I use that a lot. Like if I'm doing something silly, this is Joey. Like I'll leave a message. This is Joey Ogilvy. Please give me a call back. To my friends and stuff.
Right.
I'll start calling you Ogilvy as your nickname.
Yeah. And actually, what the one I do the most is this is Joey Ogilvy from Susie's Massage Parlor. We have your keys here. Yeah. Yeah. Especially to my married friends. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Well, I'll have to
Yeah.
see if I can find any of those articles you'll have to share, or any of those on your page, Mike.
Any what?
On your any of your articles, or those older articles that have been published.
Oh,
Like,
no, I don't have. Well, I've rewritten some of them, but I don't have the originals. I
uh-huh.
do have some magazines here. Most of them, either they got tore up or I gave them away to
Right.
people and stuff. But I do have. I know I've got two or three articles here. The magazine, and I could take you pictures if you wanted.
No, I'm
Yeah,
good. Thank you.
cool.
But and
I
I've
would
got a
love to
blog
read.
and write articles. Of course, Gypsy knows that. And I'll tell you something, Kelly, I'm pretty proud of. I thought it was really cool. I mean, not bragging, but it did make me feel good. I wrote a review on the Macro Multi Cruiser, and I am friends
Oh, yeah.
with the guys at archmdmag.com. A matter of fact, Dave Sattler is now my co-host on Thursdays for the All Metal Mode UK show. And it's him and Luke Higgins do the ArchMD Mag. Well, anyhow, it's an online magazine, and what they've recently decided to do was print their first copy and have it ready for Detectival. Well, it's more like a pamphlet, but I think they're moving more into the magazine. Well, they've got Macro Nocta was the big sponsor, and Macro Nocta wanted to have an article in it, a review of one of their detector, and they actually picked my review to go in the hard copy. So I just actually got the copy today.
Oh, that's cool.
I'm sorry, the other day. Well, I guess we got it in the mail probably Friday. Steph checked the mail yesterday, and we, yeah. So I thought that was really cool. So that's my latest being printed.
Well,
I
that's
thought was pretty cool.
neat.
Yeah, and I'll tell you
That's
what.
awesome.
While we're on this subject, I'll tell you guys that all of our listeners. I don't know what it's like now. Like I said, it's probably been 5 years, but every article I ever submitted was published. And what I'm
Wow.
getting at, they're looking for stories. And I'm not saying I'm a good writer. I'm passionate about something that I found that I write pretty easy. I find it pretty easy to write about metal detecting. I kind of write straightforward, like, I'm just kind of facts or lay it out. I know I'm not a great writer, but I get the point across and stuff. But what I'm getting at, it's pretty easy to be published in some of the metal detecting magazines. They're always looking for articles and, follow their guidelines, have a decent story, or, I wrote a lot of how-to kind of stuff, and I did share some stories, and it's actually pretty easy to do. I mean, it's not super hard. Not super hard.
No, it's not. And I agree that when you enjoy it this much, and when you make that find, and then you do the research, I call it R&I. You can piece together a article pretty quick.
Yeah. I think I started my blog about a year and a half ago, and I think I want to say pushing close to 60 articles up. And most of those articles, I'll be honest with you, are written in probably less than an hour and published. And what it is, I like I said, I'm not a writer, but I will have, I've got the kids all day and I'm busy, but I'll get an idea in my head. And by the time I actually get around to writing it, it just pours out of me. And I will just write it up usually in no time. I mean, some articles are a little more involved than that, but I can just pump them out. I can. I just don't get me wrong. A lot of thought goes into it, but I don't put it on paper and change it a bunch. And I find it hard. I just because I'm so passionate about it, it just pours out of me. So, but yeah,
exactly. And that's the thing. I don't have near that many on my website. I don't know if you've had a chance to kind of review that or not. I think there's 16, 14, 16, somewhere in there.
Kelly,
I go into.
I'll be honest with you. I joined the Facebook group just now. Very cool. I seen earlier that you'd requested I join. I didn't even see that till after I asked to join. But I did look at your blog a little bit. I really didn't have much time. I thought it was laid out really cool, and I liked what I saw. But I will go back to it and look more. I promise.
Oh, please do, and get registered. And that's what I want to tell folks. While you're there, get registered, because what I've done with my website is kind of make a one-stop super shop, if you will. And if you're trying to find a specific tool, you can scroll down at the bottom, or there's a couple. I think at the bottom of my homepage is Amazon, and I look for metal detecting deals on there, and then I'll post them on my website. I have a guy that he's really good at web design, and we kind of got together and made that page. And so now, when folks go to that, then it'll take them to Amazon, and if they purchase. I'm sorry. I call it a sniffer. My grandfather called it that. It's actually a pinpointer. And where he came up with that, I don't know, but that's where that term comes from. So
I like that.
Yeah,
I like.
Yeah, because and if you ever use the ones, back then, I can't remember what the date is on that. I've got an old White's one. And, when Teresa and I got together, that's what she got to use, was that original White's box sniffer, bullseye, I think they called it. And there was a lot of times that I might have heard a few choice words when we're out and about. And so then we got her another one, but a little bit better, a little more modern, and she was happy. So
I think I've used one of those old White's snippers before. A long time ago, when the old bullseye.
It's a squeal. It's not a beat. It's like
Yeah. Technology's come a long way since then.
Oh, absolutely.
Funny. I was trying to think of another question. What about, so do you have a favorite type of, I know a lot of people like to point shoot, and a lot of people like to relic hunt. Some like to beach hunt, water hunt. Do you have a favorite, or do you like it all? Kelly?
I'd have to say, for us, we mainly do yards. We have a habit on Fridays that we'll just load up the vehicle and put our clothes for the weekend and our machines, and we'll look at a map, look at the town, see when it was founded, and if we haven't been there yet, we go there, get a motel kind of close, or they're in the town, and knock on a door.
Wow.
And the only reason that I'll knock on a door is, I look at the foundation of that house. When you look at maps, you can a lot of times tell where the oldest part of the town is without even having to talk to anybody. And then when you look at the streets, you'll see they're kind of off-angled. And then you can, just kind of take that information. And then once you get in that area, the foundations and the sidewalks, those old sidewalks, they'll tell you a lot pretty quick. So, and
right.
that's what determines what door I'm going to knock on.
Yeah. So, that is really neat. That must be a fun adventure every weekend or whenever, you can just take off and do that. Do you have a favorite adventure that you've been on to exploring, new area, new town that you could share with us?
Gosh, well, the one
or something that just sticks out in your mind.
Well, when we left the house here and we headed kind of west, I don't know. I'd seen an article or watched a program on the Pony Express, and I thought, hey, this would be cool just to try to follow the Pony Express trail as a meander through Kansas there, with the stopping point of Maryville, Kansas. And so we went and kind of followed that by Google Earth and hit the towns along the way and, knocked on a few doors that way and did find a, what they call a lead seal. Now, what they would do, see on the Pony Express, it didn't even last a year, but they had 4 slots that they put the mail in. They drove from St. Joe to Sacramento, California. And then they take these lead seals, and that's how they'd seal that that compartment on that saddle. They had 2 on each side.
Neat.
But we found them. I found one that I'm for certain it is, but I can't confirm it. I showed it to, whenever we got to Maryville, I showed it to the lady at the Pony Express Museum that they had there. And she said it looks like it to her. They didn't actually have any. Usually you would find them, and when you found them, they would have that logo on them where the horse and rider. But there was one that they did not have the logo on there, if you will. And,
wow.
Yeah, but when you look at the color of it and compared the research on the internet and when I say that lady at the museum, she I can't remember how long she had worked there, but it's been a long time.
Wow. That's neat. Do you ever donate occasionally? Have you ever donated anything to a museum or anything like that?
We got involved with the local museum here. We found a lot of the city's tokens and items like that, and they had said that they were going to put up a spot that we could display these finds on there, and but yeah, absolutely. Because there's only so much that you can enjoy. You want everyone else to enjoy it as well. So you want to definitely give back and let them understand that, here's how it used to be long ago, and you may not know about this, but they had tokens. And tokens are absolutely awesome as well, because I remember one of them is H.C. Carpenter, and that was a local saloon here in town.
Oh wow!
That specific token was made in 1880. Well, I always like to say that it was Jesse James's because as you know, he didn't pass till 1882. So, he was at the bar there,
Yeah, you kind of come up with your own little story there. Yeah, definitely. Oh, man. Yeah. I love finding the tokens. The tokens tell so much about the history in one town or one area. But that story about, finding that seal, though, the Pony Express, that's amazing.
Yeah.
With the history attached
it really
to that.
is. I'm sorry. I think my phone's kind of... Oh, there, I can hear you. I'm sorry.
Uh-oh.
No, I can hear you now.
Okay, great.
All good.
There was
Good.
something
Okay.
else I was going to ask. Mike?
Yeah.
Do you have any questions for him? I have a list here. I've got to find it.
No, I like the stories and stuff. I didn't catch the last few minutes of the show. I had to get up and go walk around, and I needed more water, and I'm so like stoved up and sore, but so I wasn't even around for a few minutes. I'm sorry, guys.
I'm sorry.
But
No problem.
I mean, no questions I know of. Just we love hearing the stories. Love hearing stories. And
Yeah.
is that like one of your ultimate goals is to find something from like the James Gang, or it seems like you've got a lot of interest in that.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that goes clear back to, again, when I was just a little guy, 10 years old. And my grandparents, they would, tell tales of Jesse James, and I think everyone had a tale about how they were related to him or something back then. And, it really is. It's just kind of a quest of mine that there was, just for an example, there's a little town here called Winston. And the story is they tied the horses up underneath the tracks in this, it was kind of a waterway at the time. And that's when they rocked the train there just a mile east of the town of Winston. And, I finally found the owner and got to metal detect that area through there. And, some of the old timers said, no, that's not the actual tunnel there. But, I don't know. But I didn't find anything. But it was just the whole excitement, the whole adrenaline rush of man, I couldn't wait to get in there and turn that machine on and see what I could find and kind of follow those steps of history that took place. And
yeah, because you never know. I mean, that's the thrill of it all, is when you hear these stories and these history stories and someone says this person walked right through here, or, lived right here or camped right here. You just never know. That's the thrill of the hunt, and it keeps you going.
Yeah, and that's, and there's a lot of things that went with a machine that you can do. Is that another example was in another town they had it was Plattsburgh, and they had a museum there, and they asked me and my wife to go around there and see what kind of history that we could find to put in that museum, as well as the stuff they already had. Yeah, unfortunately, I mean, you could tell it's been hammered pretty hard. There wasn't much there.
Yeah.
But that led to another conversation with a lady that told me about how her great grandfather supposedly had supper with Jesse James.
Oh, wow.
Had a shack. Well, we found where the area was of the shack. We went out and metal detected, found the old wood burning stove, the front grill off of it. I found a what was that coin? One was a 1865 Indian head, because, let me back up. Also in this town is where the Confederates had taken the courthouse during the Civil War. And one of the Confederate soldiers was wounded and buried on this property. And of course, they were always told this story. And by me finding that coin in that area, well, it validated their story. I mean, there it was.
Right. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, you can validate a lot of stuff. You really can. It's awesome.
That's just amazing, though. I mean, just to think about, that right there, and the shack that was once there, and the stove that, you found pieces of that they probably touched and used, and just to try to imagine and put yourself back in that time period,
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't know. It's the thrill of the chase is all I got.
Yeah. So, what about, I know people ask me a lot, and I'm sure you get asked this a lot too. What would you consider maybe one of your most strange finds, or maybe it's even one of your most interesting finds that you've come across? Do you have one of those maybe?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Gosh,
probably
it was
several.
There is. There's a doll that they had that the head was made out of lead. I can't think of it. It was it's a god awful looking thing. I mean, it just when I dug it up, I was like, oh, good Lord, it just
kind of creeped you
I was
out.
thinking it was Halloween time or something, And yeah, but when you look at it, and once I researched and found it, it dated there at the late 1800s. I'm sorry, I can't think of the name of it, of the doll, but I know I posted on MDOA, but there's so much information there it'll take you forever to find it. But I'll find that, and I'll repost that picture. And
cool, I'd like to see it.
You can, yeah, it'll just it'll freak you out. It's like, kids played with this,
Hey, Kelly, have you ever dug a privy?
No, sir. I've metal detected it. I just, partner, I can't stand still that long to.
What I'm getting at, I've dug a handful of privies. I'm not an expert by any means, but you'll find buttons and even coins and stuff, but some of them bottles are so cool. But the reason I asked, every one of them I've been in, I think, contains at least one creepy doll head. Mm-hmm.
That's weird.
Yeah, well, I've heard that.
Yeah, and
I've heard that.
Mm-hmm. When you've had a doll head buried in the ground for 100 years and it gets stained in there, they come out looking pretty creepy. I'm going to be honest with you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can imagine. I really can. And I'll, like I said, when we're done here, I'll post that picture of that thing, and that's kind of fitting because we're going into Halloween. And if you've ever been on my personal page of Facebook, I have a tendency to be kind of seasonal, and I'll post creepy pictures or whatnot, and just being festive, I guess, and trying to, put a smile on folks' face, and I don't know, it's just kind of what I do.
Well, that's fun. Yeah, finds like that. Yeah, it's weird that you say that because, like, I don't, I've never dug that many doll heads or anything like that. But recently, I made a video. I was digging in a dump and I found this creepy little doll. It was ceramic little doll face. It was just creeping me out the whole time. So at the end, I couldn't do nothing but laugh. And if you watch the very end of the video, I'm doing like this weird thing, getting it close to the camera and backing off. But those things, I don't know why. those old ceramic dolls just creep me out.
I had a friend that how do I put this? We would go out and be young boys and get wild and crazy, and everybody we we would usually end up at his house. He lived with his grandma, and she was really understanding of our shenanigans and craziness. Well, anyhow, he his grandma had a room. The spare bedroom was full of dolls, and I don't know any of us that ever made it a night sleeping in there because all them dolls were, these creepy old antique dolls staring at you, man. And I don't care what anybody says. That's tough. That's tough there. That's tough. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, I tell you what, if you had been there, I would have been the one that would have probably got one and laid it beside you, so that way when you woke up, you were.
Uh-huh.
Or clown faces. That kind of creeps me out, too, sometimes. Just clown faces.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. Have you ever been scared while you were metal detecting? I mean, got something startled you or scared you, maybe?
Actually, we had wound up at Hannibal, Missouri. And, that's where Mark Twain and the riverboat's at. And we were digging this place. I can't remember the date of it, but it was old. I mean, it was super old. You could tell by the foundation. And I had found this lock. It's an old-style lock where the two pieces would have squeezed together to seal that lock. I don't know how much, I don't know. When we got back to the motel, because we were supposed to go for the riverboat ride that evening, and I had just gotten out of the shower, and well, actually I hadn't got in the shower yet, and I was getting ready to head in there, and my wife said, "What happened to your back?" So apparently I had several scratches all over my back, and I was never in any trees, or I didn't have a back scratcher, so I don't know. I don't know. I like that sort of thing, and I mean, I've done a few of those where you go to haunted places and you set and photograph, and just to see what you can capture on tape, and but yeah, I like, man, I have no idea what happened, and it looked like there was. I ran through a briar patch or laid down in one. It was.
Wow.
I got
where they came from.
Creepy.
While we're on that subject, I think my favorite one is years ago I was hunting with a buddy that we were on property that he's felt attached to. It's one of the earliest settlers in his county, and between the sons and everything else, there's several pieces of property they owned, but he's felt a connection to them, and he, almost to the point he doesn't talk about it, but to me it's almost a little creepy, in a way, not creepy, but like there's more to it than just. I don't know. He's got a really big connection to those people. And we're hunting in this field. It is cold. It's windy. It's late fall, early winter. And I'm hunting along, and when you get in the zone, you're kind of oblivious to everything going on around you. And all of a sudden, I got this like hair stand up on the back of my neck. And I look up from my coil, and I look over and to him, and he's just smiling, looking over my direction, and a dust devil popped up behind him, probably 100 yards away, 50 yards, 70. It was out a good bit, and that thing went east, then it cut back west, and then a little north, and then south, and come right through him. I mean, dead center of him, and then dissipated maybe 10 foot out in front of him. And
Oh,
I
what
don't
did he
know.
do?
He just smiled, but I think it creeped him out a little bit. I mean, not even creeped me out. It was a feeling of like, maybe we're not alone here, right here. I don't know. I was so in the zone, and something just all of a sudden just made the hair stand up on my. I got this like creepy, like, ooh, I'm being watched. Like you're being watched or
Yeah,
something like that. And I
I
just happened
call
to
that
look
the
up.
heebie-jeebies.
Yeah, I got the heebie-jeebies, right.
Right?
But
Oh
Well,
that's
a
man.
lot of times is those when you get those and in those areas, it may be back in the day. It might have been Indian burial ground, or a lot of times I'll look at the trees, look for markings. I don't know if you're familiar with the KGC or not. Tonight's a Golden Circle. The legend is that Jesse James didn't actually pass in 1882, and he was actually part of this KGC to get enough money for a second Civil War. Well,
Huh.
and to find these the KGC treasures, you have to look for rock formations, look for trees that are bent down, pointed in a certain direction. How trees they grow up and out, and they're very, very distinct trees because they're going to lean, a significant lean that obviously nature didn't have anything to do with that. So
Right.
when you get in those kind of areas, you always want to look around, pay attention to your environment, and see if you can spot anything that may lead you to another site, or something else that documents history, or a different time in history, I should say.
Right. Have you ever ran across any of those kind of symbols or signs when you were out metal detecting that kind of made you go, huh?
Oh yeah,
I wonder if
absolutely.
that's, yeah. What type
Yeah.
would that be that you've ran across, if you don't mind me asking?
You find rock formations or rocks that are, to a oblivious person or someone that's just walking through the forest or whatever they're doing, or the trees, and they probably won't pick up on it. But if you pay close attention to that rock, a lot of the telltale signs is a turtle. If you see, a rock cut like a turtle, or arrows on a rock, a pile of rocks, this kind of stuff that, it's, how did that get there? Something that goes, well, wait, that's not right. Nature doesn't grow like that.
Right.
Nature doesn't stack rocks, or, and
Yeah. Those that's really fascinating. I find that stuff. I mean, I could see maybe arrows or the way rocks are stacked, and certain trees bent a certain way that but the turtle thing, that's interesting, because I mean, it makes you wonder what that symbolized, or
treasure.
maybe
Treasure.
Maybe the head pointing a certain way, or is there even more significance to that than we know of?
Yeah, if you find where someone has basically just carved an entire rock, with the head pointing a certain way, the turtle is treasure, and you want to dig right there.
Definitely.
By my research, it could be up to 30 feet that I've found about that. Now that's the main part, the main treasure in that area. Now, as you branch out, they're going to be shallower, and they could the maps that if you're lucky enough to find one, that it may stretch out over a mile.
Wow.
the direction that you have to travel. But yeah, it's quite a science to it. There really is. And I mean, I've never found a cache. I dream of the day
That was
that
my
I
next
do.
question. I was wondering if you'd ever found a.
Would you ever admit it if you did?
Gosh, can I plead the fifth on that?
That's a trick question.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. Depends on what it is. A jar full of silver dimes, maybe.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh man, have you ever found a cache, Mike?
Oh, I would never, ever tell if I did. You'll know by
you wouldn't even tell.
All of a sudden, Mike goes from six detectors to about 20 of them. And I'm living on some historic property in a big house. You'll know,
right.
but I won't say.
We'll know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like
all of a sudden, Mike has every metal detector out there living on a historic farm. Yeah. No, I haven't.
Yep.
We did have Tom. Oh, what's Tom's last name? We had Tom on probably just a couple months ago. He found 60 some silver coins in Ohio. And they were the newest one was like in 1842. I mean, there were cat busts, half dollars. There was Spanish eight. Well, a lot of them were 2 reals. And Tom Dunn, yeah, and I mean, we're talking some early American silver coins. An 1807 quarter was kind of an odd one because that's the only quarter they found. But there were dimes, half dimes. Some really, really neat stuff.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, I'd like to meet and visit with Tom and show him the excuse me, the map that I have that really kind of shows you how to lay out KGC treasure and how to find it. And because a lot of times, if you find one, there's going to be several more to.
Yeah, I think
decipher.
what's weird is I've talked to Tom. We've become really good friends actually. I mean it's nothing for us to text or talk every couple days at least. And a great guy. He stumbled upon it, and although there were some outlying coins, the majority of them were found in one hole. But he was kind of walking that way, and he hit I think a 2 real, then like I don't know. I wrote an article about it, and you can go back and also listen to it listen to the podcast. But he had no idea, and I'm like, I think there's a good chance of there being more. I mean, Tom, think about it. He buried his money because he was too far from the bank or something. There was some kind of business there. I said, would you put all your money in one hole in the ground, or would you spread it out in case something happened, somebody come across it? I said, there's more. I think there's a good chance, a good opportunity for him to find more. And it was all silver coins. I wouldn't be surprised if there wasn't a gold cache there somewhere.
I
wouldn't be surprised.
I can't even imagine.
The KGC were known to do that as well. They would put silver here, they put gold here. I'd love to visit with him and talk about this map that. Hang on, just 1 second.
Yeah.
Okay. But just to be able to show him, this map that I have, and it shows you how to decipher and understand what their pattern was for laying these caches out.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, that's fascinating.
Yeah, I believe that. I just found another bloody spot on my body. That's neat. Um,
Neat.
yeah, I'm telling you, I ran into that like a bull. Um,
I'm sorry.
I'm sitting here like, what is that? Oh, that's just blood. No big deal. Um,
So, hey,
Oh
Mike, I
my.
got a question. Is your house haunted, or what's up, bub?
no, I just woke up. I was still asleep. It was raining out. I had flip flops on. I'm carrying a bunch of groceries, and I tripped getting ready to come up the stairs, and I hit the rail. I think about 50
Oh,
miles per hour. It feels like it at least. Like I stumbled into the metal rail head first. I mean, thankfully that is I don't think I do have a big knot on my head. I can feel it now. Finally, it's going up. Lovely. And I'll tell you what, it's so funny. My hair there won't even lay down right now. It's like all sticking up, and I can't get it to lay down, and it's all like lumped up there and stuff. But yeah,
Oh
boy,
man.
that was a good one. I've got band-aids on already, and finding more spots, and I got a blood blister on my pinky that's just disgusting. I just found when I went to type on the keyboard for the first time. But what I was saying is he's I what I suspect is on this properties hunting, which is just farm field now. It was probably a dairy farm in the early 1800s, or who knows? I don't think there's any creeks nearby. It could have been a mill or something where somebody made money there. And they didn't trust banks a lot of times. And I suspect the guy buried his money, which I think is way more common than some of these treasure stories we hear. I love lost treasure. Obviously, I had a bunch of articles submitted there, but you know, if you followed lost treasure through the years, there's a lot of stories that are the same. They're just in different time period, different location. I can't tell you how many times about the lost payroll that I've read, and it's always a different time era or a time period or a different part of a different state. And I'm not saying any of those aren't real, but like I'm from Ohio, so I know my history a little bit better there. There's a lot of stories about the Indians burying silver, the Indians burying gold. Well, if they had all that silver, then why were they trading furs for silver, for silver trinkets?
Yeah.
I think a lot of this stuff is embellished and made up even and that kind of stuff. But, I do think a lot of people buried their money. They lived on a farm. They lived too far. They didn't trust the banks. And I know people that have found caches like that, but all these big famous caches, everybody's still looking for them. And believe me, I'm not saying that they're all fake but I think over the years too, those get so embellished
The
and so
stories get, yeah.
they get
Yeah.
changed around and everything else. But I think I highly think, I think that there's a very good possibility there's other caches on that property. If he found one, there's more. I mean, I just common sense and knowing fellow human being, I wouldn't bury all my money in one spot. What if it did get stolen? What if somebody saw you do that and come back and steal? Well, you wouldn't want it all in the same place. Hmm.
right. And that makes sense. That's perfect sense. Because, I mean, and the thing that is that, back then the banks, I mean, folks didn't have much, and they couldn't run to town like we do today.
Hmm.
Right.
If they need something. So they're going to have to put it somewhere, and they don't want to leave it in the house because if they do get robbed, then it'll be found. But if they, have it out in the yard underneath a rock or, something that, only they know where it's at. So, I mean, that makes perfect sense. But just because, I mean, hence the whole Jesse James thing, they didn't know if, he was going to show up or whoever. And back then, they didn't have much. So what they did have, they protected, and that was the only way to protect it.
Hmm. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
something I've always found interesting too is people hiding a lot of caches and valuables in their walls and in their attics and in the floorboards and under houses and in outhouses and stuff like that. I had a friend that had found one time he was metal detecting at a old homestead, practically shack that was barely, still standing, and went inside and just happened to run his detector along the walls, the old plank walls, and got a signal, and the board was loose, and just pulled it right out, and there was an old jar, clay-like type jar in there with some old coins, and it had some paper bills in there, and an old it was an old rifle, and it had it was, he had it on display. Oh man, I drool over that every time I went to go visit. It was just an amazing find, and just found it in the wall, and it was all protected. The wood from the rifle had basically rotted away, but the rest of it was just in excellent condition.
That is cool. I've got family down in southern Ohio. And honestly, this is horrible. I can't remember the story. I believe it was a gun from a Union soldier. They bought a few hundred acres down in southern Ohio and built a house and everything. And we're like second cousins. I don't even quite remember how we were related, but walking the woods, they found a rifle leaning up against a tree, and here it was from the Civil War, and had it. They had it. I guess you'd call it preserved. They didn't have it like kind of restored, preserved, and that was really cool. But after that's been years and years ago, and I now I don't go down there anymore. But I wonder if they were in an area where Morgan's Raiders came through. And to this day, I've wondered, I wonder if that was from Morgan's Raiders, because, it was known that they were falling off their horses asleep and everything else. And I wonder how it got left in the woods. I don't know, but I believe it was a gun from a Union soldier, but I can't remember now. And they've since passed, as far as I know. I haven't seen them in years, but I'd be way curious. You're talking about inside houses. I know of somebody. I don't know them personally. No, I do actually. A friend of my brother's, years ago, they were remodeling their house, and inside the walls were, from floor to ceiling, old bottles. They were using them as insulation, they believe. But just tons and tons of old bottles. Peter Schichtel, that I mentioned earlier, of the pipe tamp, him and his buddy, and I can't remember his. I'm horrible with names. Anyhow, Joe Jorgensen. They filmed. They were working with a production company filming a show. It didn't come about, of going into old houses and stuff, and looking in places like hidden areas of houses and finding stuff. Or, I know there was one like Grant Paul said he hid some stuff and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I love all that. I'm a detectorist first, but I love it all. I love any mystery and anything involving history and finding stuff. I mean, even privy digging, that is such a neat experience. I'll tell you, if either one of you ever get a chance, do it, and go to Lowe's and spend $20 and make you up a sifter, and you'd be amazed at what you'll find sifting.
Weird about those privies. I had a friend in Galveston that I'd met through the Treasure Club there, actually, I met him out on the beach first, and I invited him to join the club. But he was in the metal detecting and bottle hunting, and him and I went out one day, and we found this area where we dug a privy together, and he kind of showed me how and all this, and we were digging up all kinds of interesting stuff, and then the pile to the side, I would get my metal detector and detect in it, and anyway, I found a brass stirrup in that pile that we were digging that privy. It's so cool, and I think I still have it. I don't think it was one of the items that was stolen, but I think right now it's in the garage. When I can find it, we're redoing our floors, but I want to show you the photos of it.
I would love that.
Yeah, we found some really cool stuff besides, bottles, digging out that privy there, because in that whole area, it's not all that far where I had found. I mean, there were several skirmishes, battles, Civil War battles and stuff like there. That's actually not far from when I found my very first Civil War bullet. But anyway, I'll always remember that, and I never would have found that stirrup if it wouldn't have been him for, showing me how to, dig for those.
Yeah.
Dig a privy and go through all that, and that was loved it. It was so fun.
I like doing privies.
That's the things that really is intriguing about this and our hobby. I call it a sport because to me it is. It's not so much. It is a hobby, but to me it's more of a sport. Is that the people that you meet and the stories that they tell you, and there was just hearing your story there, Gypsy, just reminded me of something that I was metal detecting in a town that's almost goes down, not quite, but it still has a zip code. But anyway, a guy pulled up there at this yard that I was metal detecting, and he said, well, he introduced himself, and he said, I've got this farm out here, and I'd like for you to come out and use your machine, and he got to tell me the story of the underground the Underground Railroad, and supposedly this barn, it had a tunnel system underneath it, and it went probably, I'm going to say 500 yards to the railroad tracks. Well, as the train would come by back in the day, they would, the slaves then could jump onto the train and ride that train all the way north. Now, I mean, how many barns do you know that has a tunnel system? I mean, there was no way to debunk that one. I mean, that's because, your barns are designed to hold hay for livestock or to keep animals in, or,
Right.
That was just like a huge wow factor. Of course, most of it all caved in, and you really couldn't follow it very far. But that was and my point being is that just the folks that we meet and the stories that we hear and then the stuff that we get to see, that most today it's all hustle bustle, and folks really don't take the time to sit down and talk and talk about the old days and stuff like that. It's what's the new PlayStation game coming out, or gosh, I gotta get this skin. I gotta get this skin for Fortnite. It's the next greatest thing coming out.
That's my son.
Yeah. I'm just as guilty. I enjoy gaming every now and then, and I think the one I just beat as of last night was Tomb Raider, so I still carry on that treasure tradition.
Right.
And
That's interesting about those tunnels, though. I mean, wow. And although if the tunnels weren't, caved in, but I mean, if you could dig some of that stuff out, I mean, no telling what's in there.
really,
Yeah.
it would just be fascinating. I mean, they wouldn't have had much, traveling like that. It would have been just bare necessities, as an escape route. You couldn't have a trunk or anything like that. Just basically clothes on your back and away you went. I would assume.
Right. Probably a lot of
Were you able to
lantern parts and
were you able
stuff
to
like
see
that.
any of the tunnel system, or was it too collapsed?
No, it was too collapsed.
Yeah.
It was. I mean, you could see exactly where it collapsed in at.
Yeah. That's
But
neat.
you could, being underneath a barn floor, that those type of the wood floor that they had right there, and I mean, my God, those boards were 2 inches thick and 12 inches across, and I mean, they were huge.
Wow. That's amazing. But it's amazing how many, how much I hear of hidden tunnels and stuff like that, and I remember hearing that in Galveston too. When I lived there, I was standing in a back alley. Me and one of my friends had been detecting downtown where they'd torn down a building, and I'd walked through this back alley, and somebody stopped to talk to me because I was standing there with my metal detector and pointed down this little graded little thing there and said, there's tunnels all over this place where, I'm sure even Jean Lafitte, might have, taken some of those tunnels if you could do some of the history research on some of that stuff and like cellar holes and stuff. Have either one of you ever dug in an old cellar hole or anything like that, or went in one?
I did a little bit at the house I lived in last in Ohio. It was mid 1800s, but there's a lot of junk down there from over the years buried, like old pipes and electrical stuff. And but the town I actually grew up in, I've never seen any firsthand, but there's a lot of stories of the what's going on? That was weird. You guys both still there?
Yes.
Gypsy?
Do you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, I think we lost Gypsy.
Oh,
Gypsy! Hold on, I gotta add her. We lost her for some reason.
Well, she said it was storming there, so maybe they had a power or outage or something.
Yeah, she's.
Hey, I'm here. Sorry, I don't know. My phone just dropped the call.
Oh, it happens. I grew up in Tip City, Ohio, and there's a lot of rumors of the Underground Railroad network in there, and there's supposedly houses with tunnels and stuff. Like I said, I never saw it firsthand, but I believe it's very possible. So who knows? I don't know. I'd love to investigate some. Two things on my bucket list. I mean, I'm not real big on bucket lists and things that I got to find, but I think two things there's more, but a George Washington button. And I know that's almost silly. I mean, it's, they I don't know. I just think they're cool and they're pretty rare, but that and a slave tag. I would love,
Yeah.
I think, I know it's a dark time for our country and everything else, but at the same time, we can't forget our history. And I would love to have a slave tag, and I just can't even imagine. I know some have been found, but I've always thought, if they made it to Ohio, they were safe. And a lot of people came into Cincinnati. A lot of the slaves came into Cincinnati, and for some, I've never heard of one being found, but I just imagine one taking off his tag and throwing it like symbolic, like I'm no longer, But I've never heard of one being found in the Cincinnati area.
Yeah, that's I've hunted some old plantations where there were slave quarters and stuff like that, but never found anything like that. And like you said, I mean, it's not really on my bucket list, but I wouldn't mind finding one, and
Yeah.
just the history there. And somebody mentioned it in the chat a while ago, or I mentioned Jean Lafitte, when I lived in Galveston, I read up, on the history. And the history in Galveston just fascinated me. Oh, man, with the 1900 storm, the hurricane that hit, and all the people that died there, and just the history there was just fascinating because it was just such a huge, port where all these old ships and, people would come in from all over. And Jean Lafitte was a name that popped up a lot, and someone was asking if he was, from Louisiana. But, I think he had traveled a lot from Louisiana and some of that area on up into Texas. But he was a big, slave, from what I understand. People want to say he's was just a pirate, but that was part of his trade was unfortunately, was the slave trade. And, I mean, if you ever get a chance, read up on some of the history, and if you ever get a chance to go to Galveston and hunt in that area, I mean, it's just fascinating. And it's some sad stuff, but I was trying to read somebody's comment here.
Yeah,
Lafitte helped.
Steve said
British.
Lafitte helped. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. That's so interesting. Yeah, just the history on even Jean Lafitte, if you study any of that, or it's just fascinating stuff.
A lot of the Lafitte stories also talk about the Beale treasure, and that's another one I've done a lot of research on. And supposedly he was the one that hit it there in, I want to say it was Louisiana area or somewhere in that area. I don't remember exactly what it was, but earlier you were also talking about these cellars and finds and stuff like that. There was one old farmhouse that I metal detected, and up in this tree was a railroad spike that was driven into the tree. Well, it pointed in a direction, so yeah, and I followed that direction, and underneath about a 6-inch rock that was probably, I want to say at least 2.5, 3 feet across in each direction, was an old rusty can. So, I mean, it was empty, unfortunately, but those are just some of the things that you look for when you're out, in the trees and areas like that. Just looking for those things that are out of place that, that's like, well, why is it? You got to ask yourself, why is that there? And a lot of times that they point you in a direction, and you have to follow that. And,
right. You never know where it may lead.
Exactly. And then you were touching on about the cellars and stuff. The other thing is the old root cellars that they had back in the day, which a lot of them were filled in. There was one of them that it was a rock that I went down in, but I knew that from stories from the old timers that they would tell that they always had a rock that you could pull out from the wall, and that's where they kept their stash or their money of course, every time I find something, it's always empty, but I still find it.
Yeah, someone Yeah, I've heard of
it's cool
people
flying,
finding. Yeah,
go ahead.
sorry. I've heard of people, finding where, they could even see uh, where someone had beat them to finding a cache. They followed all the clues, and then they finally get there, and there's this empty thing, and you can see like the where coins had once been there, and the impression and stuff. That would be awful,
Yeah.
But yeah, looking for those signs though, that's neat about the railroad spike and stuff, and following those signs, and like you said earlier about the rocks and stuff. Did you say, have you ever hunted in any cellar holes or anything like that, Kelly?
Well, just that one that I went down in was where you pulled the rock out, and you could tell that there was an empty void back in behind it. But they're kind of hard to find nowadays, because usually what they did was most of them collapsed, so they finished filling them in, because they didn't want kids wandering in there and getting trapped or something like of that nature. And
dangerous, yeah.
Who knows what's been lost? That's another. You were talking, Mike. You were talking about privies and whatnot, and that just reminded me that that story, and it's just amazing that once we get to talking, and it's just you'll say something that'll trip a memory for me that, oh hey,
Oh, definitely, yeah. That's why I love hearing everyone's stories and treasure stories and hunt stories, is because you hear a story, and then it's like, oh yeah, I didn't even think about that, or oh, I wish I would have thought of that story. I would have shared that. Kind of makes you think of other hunts or things like that. So what was I going to ask you, Kelly? Go ahead.
Well, what I want to do while you're thinking of that question is that next day or two I will put a blog up on my website, because I've still got that picture of that spike in the tree. I don't know if I've got a picture of the rock that I found of the can underneath, but I'll put that up on my website. And again, it's just kellynoeller.com. Yeah, and you can have a look at it and see. And I could actually probably go back out. Well, and I can't now because all this rain, that there's just no way I'd be able to get there unless I want to walk forever and a day and then try to get back. But I'm sure that rock's still there, and I don't. Gosh, I'm just trying to remember if that can was, if I put it back in the hole, or if I just got rid of the can, just trying to clean up. That's as a detectorist, that's one thing that I like to convey to people, is that when you're out detecting, just because you don't find the riches, you can still clean up, what was left behind, and that way no one ever gets cut on it or anything like that. And when you dig holes and you might get some iron in the hole, make sure you throw that stuff away, and let's make sure we do our part in cleaning up. So.
Yeah, I'm fortunate enough. My park's local. You're allowed to metal detect, and with kids and stuff, sometimes it's hard to get out. But I'll take my stepdaughter over to the park, and I'll hunt the tot lot, and you hope for a little piece of gold, but at least get coins out of there. But it's nothing for me to pull out a pocket full of shredded pop cans and pull tabs with sharp edges and stuff, and it's pretty amazing actually. But then we have people that are so against us doing that, and it's like, my God, the stuff I've pulled out of parks is incredible.
If they only knew all
the stuff that kids can get hurt on. So
exactly.
Another thing is that when me and Teresa's been out detecting, we've come across the lawn darts that they had as a game that you could throw at a plastic purple. We've come across wire. this kind of stuff that will obviously hurt. Kids like to run barefoot.
Yeah.
And no matter how much you preach, they're going to do it. And when you find this kind of stuff, I mean, we found razors and all kinds of stuff in the ground. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, all that's going to do is get somebody hurt. And when you show the landowner, the property owner, hey, this is what I dug, this is what I'm throwing away, and they're very appreciative. And you touched on something earlier that there's several folks that are kind of against us, or that not very happy at what we do, and that they think that just because it's in the ground it should stay there. Or there's a lot of pros. The pros outweigh the negatives as far as metal detecting. And I'm not just saying it because I'm biased about it, but I'm saying that in the light that you're going to find some stuff that, in the right conditions, could do some serious damage to human life or property or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree. Take your trash with you, haul it out. Don't leave. Even field hunting. Take that stuff. That can hurt tractors and everything else. Take your stuff with you. It makes everything better. Guys, I would like to wrap it up soon. I do not feel good. Feel like I need to lay down. I don't want to rush us off of here or anything, but I'm getting wore out.
No, I understand. Poor thing. I feel bad.
Yeah, we're almost at 2. And we can always have you back on, Kelly. I think we could get more stories and talk about more stuff again. And I'm sure you got plenty of stories all your years of detecting. I'm just like getting where I can't sit. I'm getting so sore. My head hurts. I'm just wore out. I'm wore out now. So.
No, that's fine. And just let me know whenever it's convenient for you guys. And you're right. I got stories I can talk and talk and talk. So
before we get off of here, tell us again. Tell us about the Facebook group, your website, all that, so people have it.
The Facebook is Metal Detectors of America. It's MDOA. And my website's kellynoeller.com. I also have a few videos on YouTube. I try to go in to explain a few things, and I talk, about tumbling and, setting a machine. So there's a lot of avenues there, but my website has a lot of other information. So, if folks have questions or they want to ask me stuff, they don't hesitate to get a hold of me. And I've always said that, if you got a treasure story, tell me about it, and we'll see if we can go find it. That's just kind of one of the things that I like to do and research and see what we can come up with.
Oh, that's cool. Very cool. Gypsy, you did really good tonight. Wonderful job. I think I'm going to pat myself on the back. I did pretty good and stayed out of it a bunch, let you kind of run the show, and I think you did really, really good. So, yeah, good night.
Thank you. I appreciate talking with Kelly and you about this fun stuff, and I really enjoyed your stories, Kelly, and can't wait to talk to you again about some more.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank
Same
you.
here. I enjoyed it as well.
I look forward to it. It was a great night. Thank you guys for inviting me.
Thank you for coming on, Kelly. We appreciate it.
And good night to all. We appreciate you being here, and I had a great time. And Mike, just be careful going to bed, and I'm worried that you might have a concussion.
Be careful taking the dogs out in the morning, too.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Gypsy. And everybody have a good night. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed it.
Take care.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, all.
The All Metal Mode podcast is sponsored by Digger's Den. If you are looking for a metal detector, get in touch with Mike or Brian. Together, they have years of experience with many different brands and models. They also truly enjoy what they do. You can contact them through Facebook at Digger's Den, visit the website at dddetectors.com, or give Mike a call. He makes it sound like it's so hard raising our boy, but trust me, he has time. 937-414-4578.